All right. Hello, book lovers. Welcome to our editor's pick session here. These titles have all been nominated by our publishers because they're exciting new voices or maybe traditionally undersupported voices and just stories and authors that they want you to know about. So this is Sarah Richmond from Edelweiss by Above the Tree Line. I'm just here facilitating. I'm really excited to introduce you to these books and the editors and authors behind them and the publishing folks. I know they're super excited to tell you about these books too. But before we jump in, I want to take just a second and say, make a note that this session and all of our editors' picks is part of an ongoing work of Treeline 2020, which works to support diversity, equity, and inclusion in our beloved publishing industry. So this underlines all the work that we do as a company, but Treeline 2020 in particular accomplishes this through investing in organizations doing really great work, providing access to internships and scholarships, and also amplifying undersupported voices in publishing. So thanks for listening, thanks for participating and making all of that possible. So today's session is pretty special. We're going to hear about an amazing collection of books. I guarantee you're going to add to your to be read list, because when I was pulling the slides together for today's session, I definitely added to my own list. Don't worry, you're going to get a link to all of these books in Edelweiss so you can read more about them. You can add to orders, you can add to your shelves. If you're listening at Bookfest, you can add these books to your tote bag, and you can even purchase them from the independent bookstore of your choice that you selected. So we have representatives from all of these publishers today. Some of them are the author themselves, and they're each going to take just a few minutes and share why they're excited about this book and why you might want to check it out as well. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking and pass it on over to Anita, who's going to talk to us about Shallow Waters.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm super honored to be here today. And I was actually laughing because I told my dad that that Shallow Waters was a sci-fi editor's pick for Edelweiss. And he was like, sci-fi? He has an accent, but he's like, sci-fi. And I'm like, yeah, Dad, it's about a black mermaid. Like, and that's my favorite, is when a book makes you feel like you're really in the world. A sci-fi book makes it feel like you're in reality. That's my favorite. So my name is Anita Kopach. I am the author of Shallow Waters, and Shallow Waters is being published. It's the first fiction title published under Black Privilege Publishing, which is a part of Atria, which is a part of Simon & Schuster. And it is Charlemagne the God's publishing house. And so he's really excited to amplify Black voices, get our voices out, get our stories out. And Shallow Waters is about an Orisha named Yemeya. And Orisha is a goddess from the Yoruba pantheon of gods and goddesses in Nigeria. And stories, written stories of Yemeya go as far back as the 16th century, when the enslaved Africans were coming over. But because the stories are passed down orally, we really don't know how old these stories are. And so when I found out about Yemeya when I was younger, I was like, there's a black mermaid. Like, I was so excited because I loved Splash. I loved the Little Mermaid. And so I was super happy that there was a black one. And so what I did was I imagined Yemeya as this black mermaid before she knew she was a goddess. It takes place in the 1800s, early 1800s, starts off on the west coast of Africa. It's the mermaid story where they fall in love with a fisherman, but that fisherman gets kidnapped by the slave ships and taken to the New World. So Yemeya has her own middle passage underwater, follows, don't worry, I'm not going to tell the whole book. Follows underwater, and when they get to the New World, she has to cocoon herself for 40 days and 40 nights. And during that time, she loses Obatala, which is the fisherman that she fell in love with. And so the whole story is about her trying to find her love in a place where her skin color makes her a slave. And the reason I was super excited to write this book was because I feel like I should have put on a timer, but I'll pay attention. The reason I was so excited to write this book was because I wanted to write a story with the protagonist as a strong Black woman during this time in American history that was so hard and just brutal. And so you get to see the story from almost from the point of view of I want to say a superhero, but it's not that same type of thing. It's just it has that magical twist in there. And but yeah, some background about me. I was the editor-in-chief of Heart and Soul magazine for 5 years, and also the managing editor of Beauty Sense. And so that's kind of how I went into the publishing world. I was writing for a few magazines as well. And we've had some great feedback on the book. I wanted to read one for you before I leave. Some awesome people have left me some feedback. Beverly Bond, she founded Black Girls Rock. Dr. Yaba Blay, Michael B. Beckwith, BET. And one of the things that that a journalist said that just stayed with my heart was, Yemeya was me. She reminded me of me. Yemeya is you. She reminds me of you. I read this book like I reread my childhood journal. This book is a glistening gem. It will remind every Black woman that she is pure magic, divine and fully human, worthy of everything that brings her joy. She will remember that even 29 years after she first prayed for it. And that's me. Thank you.
I love that. Wow. Thank you for sharing that with us. It sounds like I definitely added that to my own list. Great. All right. Next up, we have the Voyages of Cinrak the Dapper. And we have Catherine here to talk about this one.
Thank you. Hi there, I'm Catherine Lundoff, and I'm an author, editor, and publisher from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and really excited to be here today. And that's going to be a hard act to follow, Anita, but I'll do my best here. So Queen of Swords Press has been around since 2017. We've got 11 titles out so far, with a couple more coming out this year. And the one I'm going to talk about today is The Voyages of Cinrak the Dapper by A.J. Fitzwater. AJ is a genderqueer author from New Zealand, and this is their first collection. I started doing something a couple of years ago where we have minis, and these are about 40,000 words long, and they're linked short stories or novella length works, and they're meant to encourage audiences to pick up books that maybe have a lower price point, that are, you know, a little more accessible, as a way to ease into the work of authors they may not be familiar with. So AJ is an award-winning author in New Zealand, but is, you know, not as well known here. And this is a series of stories about a dapper lesbian capybara pirate. All of the characters in the book are anthropomorphic animals or sea creatures. They're no humans. And it's basically, you know, Cinrak starts out in an orphanage and then, you know, works her way out to becoming a pirate captain and ultimately has her own fleet. These are like the warmest, fuzziest pirates in the world, aside from the fact that they're capybaras and rats and so forth. So Cinrak is just beautifully written. Some of the things that AJ covers in here, the cabin kit, who's I believe a chinchilla, comes out as trans over the course of the stories. And AJ does a marvelous job of modeling how adults can be supportive and encouraging when a trans kid in their lives comes out, and does a really great job covering that. There's a lot of beautiful writing about nature, about interacting with the sea. One of the characters is a giant kraken named Agnes, who they communicate with telepathically. And they end up going on adventures with Agnes and helping Agnes find her true love and reunite with her people. So lots of great stuff in here. The pirates are starting a union, and Cinrak is very involved in union organizing with the pirates and the other rodents who inhabit this particular world. And it's just a lovely, lovely little book. I've been calling it our little bundle of queer joy. So we had planned for a release last year, and of course I picked April, as one does. This turned out to not be a good idea. So at that point, AJ had a small tour scheduled. We were doing conventions, we were doing bookstores, we had all the stuff lined up, and we had to cancel that, move things online, and really, hustle a lot to get the word out about this book, in part because we're also a small press. So it's been a really interesting journey. Right now, this is a finalist for the Sir Julius Vogel Awards, which, if you're familiar with science fiction and fantasy fandom, it's New Zealand's equivalent of the Hugos. AJ is also up for Best Novella and for Best Fan Writing for an essay that they wrote about writing these stories, which is really cool and has this kind of, nicely circular quality to it. It's gotten some great write-ups in Publishers Weekly. It was on Locus Magazine's recommended reads from 2020. AJ has appeared in everything from every major lit festival in New Zealand to the Sunday newspaper in Christchurch, New Zealand, did a whole spread about them and their books. They put out a second book after this one, so about 2 months later. So now they have 2 books. So it's been really great to be part of that journey with AJ and watching their writing skills develop, watching their presentation develop, and seeing them grow. And I think they're going to have an amazing career ahead of them. The book's up for another couple of awards right now. Don't have any word on that yet. The cover is by local artist Diane Wynn, who does covers under Ruby Diane Arts. And, I love the colors. I love the texture that she put into this. The interior design is by another local book designer named Terry Roy, who put in, some of the pages have little tentacles coming up from the bottom. There are little seahorses for the chapter breaks. And it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous little book. And I'm so proud of it. One of the things I wanted to mention is that because our primary readership is mostly adults, we've marketed to an adult market as well as some spillover into the anthropomorphic fiction audiences as well. So I think that people who really liked Ursula Vernon's Digger would really enjoy this book. But I also think that it could certainly reach a YA audience as well. And it's certainly dealing with some topics that are very pertinent to YA readers. So I think that that's certainly another opportunity that I could see, as this book goes out and finds its people, that's an area where we could definitely tap into. And I've had some really great feedback from people who've bought it from their teenagers. Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. I really hope you'll check out the book and check out some of AJ's other work. And yeah, have a great time at the Bookfest.
That's awesome. I mean, you had me at capybara. I was already sold.
A lot of people don't get past that part. Like,
That's all I need
it's
to
either
know.
the thing or it's not the thing. It's one of those two.
It's really all I need to know. It's on my list. Thanks for sharing. All right. Next up, we have The Queen of the Cicadas, and we have Violet Castro, the author, is going to talk to us about this book.
Hi, V. Castro here with The Queen of the Cicadas, La Reina de las Cicadas. And I'm really pleased to say that it has received starred reviews from Kirkus and Publishers Weekly, blown away by glowing endorsements from Stephen Graham Jones and Christopher Golden. And, if I couldn't smile more, in June, before it's released on June 22nd, there will be a feature with an interview that I did with Becky Spratford with Library Journal. So I'm really excited to kind of talk more about the book in Library Journal and share more details with everyone. So I guess next up is why this book is special. Well, for starters, like the chichara, the cicada, and like the mariposa, the butterfly, now is the time for women of color, people from marginalized communities, to have the opportunity to fully express themselves through storytelling, um, and spread their wings to be shown, to tell their stories in their own voices. And you know, it was important for me to not only represent my roots, I'm Chicana, Mexican American, but also for the future generations. I have a daughter, and growing up, I consumed media, books, film, music that rarely represented me. And so as I began writing, it was just a natural progression for me to say, all right, this is where I come from. So the book is alchemy, essentially. It is my Chicana roots, because I am a great granddaughter of Mexican farm workers, migrant workers, and the lead character is a migrant worker. The book is set in South Texas, where I am from. I'm from San Antonio, so I bring that in. Um, and also, when you come from two different cultures, you exist in this liminal space. You don't know, you're always questioning your identity to a certain extent. Where do you really belong? So I talk about that a lot in the book with Belinda, another main character, Belinda Montoya. But the part that really means a lot to me is the Mexican mythology. The Aztec pantheon is rich in storytelling, but it's oral history that was destroyed and subverted and assimilated. So I wanted to bring all of those elements together to weave together a tapestry of essentially of who I am. And there are thousands, millions of other people out there who share those roots, yet they don't see themselves represented. You know, growing up, I would have loved to have seen a book like this in a Target, in a Walmart, small bookshops in the window, and just to see, wow, what is that all about? I actually recently, um, a young woman tweeted, you know, I've really been struggling with my ethnicity, but reading V. Castro, she really makes me feel seen. And that is everything, because, you know, the Chicano experience is not really explored a lot. So I've kind of just said, you know what? I don't see it, so I'm going to write it. I think Toni Morrison said something like, well, she did say that. Sorry, sorry, Toni. I'm quoting you, Miss. But so that is kind of, you know, the heart and soul of this. I think in any own voices storytelling, it's filled with heart and soul. And now is the time for us to spread our wings and say, here we are.
Yeah.
I think that's all I have right now. So June 22nd, I hope you will check it out. It's available for pre-order from Flame Tree Press.
Beautiful book.
Thank
And
you.
I,
Thank
I
you.
love that you were inspired to write the book that you needed as a child, and hopefully readers will then be inspired to write as well. And so,
Exactly. Yeah, that's the idea, is to inspire others to say, you know what? I'm going to take that first step. I'm going to take that creative writing class. I'm going to show my counselor, or a friend my short stories, my poetry, my songwriting. Because if you don't see it, how can you know it's possible?
right.
And that's what I think all of us are doing when we kind of take those initial scary steps and put ourselves out there, that it's not so scary, that, you know what, there are others like you, you're valid, you matter, and your history and stories matter.
And
So,
I see lots of co-panelists clapping as well. Those watching the recording can't see it, but yes, thank you for sharing your book
oh,
and your
thank
hard
you.
work.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for checking out
Yeah.
the editor's picks and all of the books that are here.
Oh,
So,
and
very
and some
grateful.
amazing jacket covers too. The artists with the jacket covers just continue to amaze me as well. Okay. Well, next up we have Far from the Light of Heaven, and we have Navia here to talk to us about this book.
Great. Hi, I'm Nivea Evans. I'm a senior editor at Orbit, which is the science fiction and fantasy imprint at Hachette Book Group. And it's my pleasure to present Far from the Light of Heaven by Tade Thompson. Tade is a Nigerian-British author who has won the Arthur C. Clarke Award and No More Award for his ambitious and critically acclaimed series, The Wormwood Trilogy, a story of colonialism in Nigeria told through the lens of Alien and Alien First Contact. That series immediately established Tade as a rising star in science fiction, with his work being hailed as smart, gripping, and magnificent by best-selling author Ann Leckie and the Los Angeles Review of Books. Now, with his new novel, Far from the Light of Heaven, Tade sweeps readers into space and reveals an unforgettable vision of humanity's future among the stars. When 31 passengers are murdered on a colony ship, a captain desperate to prove herself and a disgraced investigator must find the killer, protect the survivors, and guide the disabled ship to safety. Through this tale of human drama, sinister politics, cutting-edge technology, and the struggle for survival in deep space, Tade shows that he's an expert at crafting accessible commercial plots that really connect with genre fans. And he elevates it all with razor-sharp writing and draws readers into a masterfully constructed world brimming with vibrant characters of color, a gripping mystery, and innovative ideas. If you've enjoyed, say, Ann Leckie's Ancillary Justice, Adrian Tchaikovsky's Children of Time, James S. A. Corey's Expanse series, you really don't want to miss out on Far from the Light of Heaven. And once you start reading, you won't be able to put it down. It publishes on October 26th, and I hope you all check it out.
Sounds like one you don't want to start right before bed.
No, it's really immersive and propulsive, and it's just great.
Right. Oh, wow. Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that one. Okay, next up we have Time Before Time, Volume 1, and Chloe's going to talk to us about this one. I think, do we have Chloe? Do. She might be having some reading issues. Chloe, we'll come back to you if needed. How about that? All right, well, let's skip ahead and we'll come back. Okay, so we have next up The Tempered Steel of Antiquity Gray, and we have Sean who's going to talk to us about this, I think. Maybe. I think we were having some tech issues. We might have lost a couple people. 1 second. Let me click through. Okay. Okay, how about we try, we'll come back to those. Let's talk about These Bones, and we have Christine on, who's going to talk to us about These Bones.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Can, yep, you're good.
All right, so I hope my video is showing up as well. I can't tell from here. So I'm Christine Newlieb. I'm the editorial director of Lanternfish Press in Philadelphia, and we've been publishing books since 2014. And a lot of what we do is books that fall on the line between literary and speculative. So magical realism, tales with elements of the fantastical and monstrous. And this is one of those stories. This is a sort of patchwork tale of the history of a racially divided Midwestern town throughout the 20th century. It's told through a lot of different voices, a lot of combination of the author's very lyrical, strong narrative voice with bits of neighborhood newsletters and train schedules and all kinds of little ephemera that give you glimpses into the life of this town. Focusing on two families, the Lyonses, who are a Black family that live in the Bramble Patch neighborhood, and the Kincaid family, who are a white family on the opposite side of town, and their fates become intertwined. There are a lot of things that haunt this town. From the very beginning, it's said that all of the layers of this town were built over the bones of its dead, and the ghosts of the various characters who meet, I don't want to give away too much, but who meet different fates throughout the stories, come back, and there is a sort of underworld kingpin, as much as there can be in a town this small, called the Barghest, who is a monstrous cannibalistic pimp, essentially, with unnatural long life, and the ghosts of those who kind of fall under his claws at various points throughout the story just are always sort of waiting in the wings, hungry and waiting to take their revenge, in a sense, but it's all in a very lyrical tone rather than like kind of a more pulpy story. It's like, if I can give you an example, that is especially like the very final section of this book is very like an incantation, where the character who is clairvoyant and who is able to see these ghosts throughout the story finally kind of leads their procession at the end and says, "I am baptized into the night, and I know what the river hides. They will not find what they seek, only an old man whose heart stopped beating. The bramble patch turned to star thistles." And it's a lovely lyrical story about history and ghosts. And Kayla is a debut author whose voice I think you'll want to remember. Her power as a narrator is incredible. She's just like definitely a young voice to watch, and I'm really, really excited for this book to come out.
It sounds like another one not to read right before bed too.
Probably not.
Maybe for other reasons.
Yeah.
A little ghostly. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us. All right. Next up, we have a couple titles that are distributed from IPG, and we have Lauren from IPG who's going to talk to us about them.
Thank you, Sarah, so much for the opportunity to speak with you today, and you all in the Bookfest audience as well. I'm Lauren Clauda, as Sarah said, the Director of Marketing at IPG, Independent Publishers Group. We represent and distribute more than 1,000 independent and international presses. It's my privilege today to talk about two fantastical titles, both from Echo Publishing, an imprint of Australia-based Allen and Unwin, and both from Alison Evans, an incredible award-winning non-binary author crafting more inclusive and representative queer YA. Alison contributed to Kindred, 12 queer #LoveOz YA stories, co-edits the zine Concrete Queers, and is the fiction editor for NB Life. They got their start writing fan fiction online, as probably many of us have, in high school, and now writes imaginative and inherently inclusive stories that reflect the spectrum of readers looking to see themselves represented on the page. Their work has won and been shortlisted for several major Australian and international awards. They acknowledge they live on unceded lands of the Wurundjeri people west of Melbourne in Australia with their wife and cat. The first book you see here is Highway Bodies, that just published here in the US through us on May 1st, an in-trade paper. Highway Bodies is a unique dystopian zombie apocalypse story featuring a range of queer and gender nonconforming teens who've lost their families and friends and can only ultimately rely upon each other. While the undead are to be feared, it's ultimately the rest of the living they learn they need to watch out for. To quote a terrific review the book has received on Goodreads, this is a story of resilience, adaptation, and bravery, of learning who to trust and how to navigate the complex morality that is survival in a post-apocalyptic setting. It is a story of friendship and belonging, a story of grief and loss and terror and desperate determination, as well as a story of what it means to be truly alive and to be true to who you are. It's definitely not for the squeamish. Think the first season of The Walking Dead, but with a younger, more inclusive and representative cast of unlikely teen heroes. The book was just included in Lambda Literary's list of May's most anticipated LGBTQ literature. And the other title by Allison that I get to talk about today is Euphoria Kids, out June 1st, a gentle and whimsical story about 3 LGBTQ teenagers who learn about the magic stirring in the forest around their Australian home, and ultimately about the power of friendship. And there are witches and good and bad fae to contend with, on top of the challenges of exploring one's identity and fitting into high school. Ever since a witch cursed Babs, she turns invisible sometimes. Then one day, Iris can see her. Non-binary Iris actually grew from a seed, and they too have trouble making friends. The two of them are connected to the magic around them. Enter a new, shy, transgender boy at school who does not yet know his name. It soon becomes clear something is happening in the other realm, and despite being warned to stay away, the 3 friends have to figure out how to deal with it on their own terms. Unlike so many LGBTQIA stories that focus on bullying and hate as the backdrop to self-discovery, Euphoria Kids' focus on its young LGBTQ leads is directed by positivity. All 3 main characters are loving and gentle and accepting. They're sensitive to one another's feelings and prove strong, brave, and willing to own the truths of who they are that they discover along the way. Likewise, their parents and teachers treat them with kindness and respect. Entertainment comes in the form of the books Dryads, Fairies, and Magic Spellbooks, but its important message about individuality and acceptance is what will most resonate with other young adults. As far as representation goes, Iris is non-binary and bisexual. Babs is a trans girl, a lesbian, and has depression. Their friend, the boy, is Arab and trans boy. And Iris also has 2 WLW mothers, and Babs' mother has fibromyalgia and depression. I have to say, I'm absolutely obsessed with this beautiful cover, with Evan's inventive and unique prose and the lovingly written main characters in this. It's just such a happy and uplifting book. Euphoria Kids was included in PW's Spring 2021 Children's and YA LGBTQ Books Roundup, and Kirkus called it a gentle meditation on finding your people and coming into your own magic. And the book has just garnered a starred review from Forward Reviews as well. It's perfect for fans of Francesca Leah Block's Sweet Sea Bat series and films out of Studio Ghibli like Spirited Away and My Neighbor Totoro. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Lauren. Those are some really cool, unique books, and you're right, those jacket covers are amazing.
They're gorgeous. I love them. And Allison's writing is just so cool. Very Australian, but I think that in this global world in which we live, it's wonderful to have the opportunity to be exposed to different writing styles. It's our way to travel right now, right? Right,
exactly. Oh goodness, okay, just keep adding to my list. I'm gonna move backwards now, and I'm going to go to Time Before Time, and we've got Chloe here to talk to us about this one.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Sarah. I am here from Image Comics. I am the book market and library sales manager, and I'm presenting for Declan Shalvey, Rory McConville, Joe Palmer, and Chris O'Halloran, who are bringing us Time Before Time. This is the first volume in a long-running new series. It is a mix of saga and looper. It has very big Cowboy Bebop, Coen Brothers, Gene Roddenberry vibes. It tells the story of Tatsuo. He is a man trying to leave behind a life spent working for a criminal organization that trades in time travel, as one does, and Nadia, an FBI agent who's just trying to get back across time to her family. They make an unlikely pair and are thrown together by circumstance, and now they're in about as much trouble as one can get into. No matter when or where they go, danger is either not far behind or it's directly ahead of them. They're being pursued not only by Tatsuo's former employers across time, but also by all the other criminal organizations, ne'er-do-wells, and other characters who have a vested interest in them not reaching safety, in them divulging their secrets, in them perhaps giving an in to the other organization that others would like to take over. Time travel is, after all, a very big deal, a very lucrative deal. Like any good science fiction yarn, Time Before Time is really talking not only about the future and about sort of an alternate reality to ours, but also asking questions about today. And most importantly, perhaps if you lived in the worst possible time imaginable, what would you sacrifice to escape it? Who would you leave behind? And what would you do if every subsequent move that you made somehow made things almost unimaginably more complex? All of this is laid out with whip-smart dialogue. It's sharp and funny, and it stars a diverse and inclusive cast of characters from a variety of backgrounds. Oop, that's my cat's tail. From a variety of backgrounds. Everyone has really well developed and fully fleshed out motivations and desires that run the gamut. And they have a potentially infinite timeline at their fingertips. So potential readers would be forgiven for worrying that the authors may potentially lose the plot, but it never happens. They never lose it. Shalvey and McConville just keep everything on track while constantly ramping up the stakes with a deliciously dark sense of humor that it's perfect for me, and I know it's perfect for a lot of other readers. Fans of epic stories like The Expanse, and again, books like Saga are really going to find just a totally enthralling tale that you cannot put down with Time Before Time. So thank you guys again for having me.
And you can get in early on the start of a great new series too. That's my favorite.
This one is probably going to get, I just am crossing my fingers, but I feel like this is going to get an adaptation. So for booksellers and librarians and just regular old readers, get it while it's hot. Get in before everybody else.
Say, I read it first.
Yeah.
Not like the book.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing to say.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you.
Okay. So we don't want to leave without talking about The Tempered Steel of Antiquity Gray. And Nicholas, are you here to talk about this one? No?
No, I was here with Anita, but she did great. I am gonna let her.
Well, I think that Sean, who was going to talk about this one, is having some tech issues, which happens because it's technology. It's happened to all of us. But I do want to make sure to mention this one because this is a really cool title to check out. One of the reviews that I saw said it's perfect kind of post-apocalyptic mech-filled sci-fi adventure. If you liked Pierce Brown's Red Rising, kind of meets Robotech. So it's just a real fun sci-fi story that draws you in. She's fleeing in a desperate attempt to kind of uncover secrets of her past and free an entire planet. A pretty big job. But it's also a story of friendship and family, and how even kind of the hardest heart of an enemy can soften, and maybe the adventure is not what she thought. So Sean Speakman's a really cool, he's an award-winning editor, has done Unfettered, Unbound, Unfettered 2 and 3, an urban fantasy novel. So anyway, check it out. Definitely add it to your list. Don't take my word for it. Go into Edelweiss, look at the listing, and read some of the reviews from people who really love the book, and they'll give you their take on it as well. So thank you so much to all of the authors and the editors who talked about their books today. I added a lot to my own reading list, and so that's always a good problem to have. Just need to find the time to read all of these, but thank you for your time today and happy reading to all of you.